I notice that the latest psychodrama has played itself out with yet another Prime Minister imposed on the people without the people having any say at all. And before we get too excited about Rishi Sunak, this is somebody who was a cheerleader for austerity, who had so little confidence in his future in the United Kingdom that he had a green card to emigrate to the States when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. And of course, somebody who was fined for partying during lockdown. He has an appalling track record as a cabinet minister, and I think he'll be an appalling prime minister. I'm guessing my constituents don't know a lot about Rishi Sunak, but if they know anything at all about him, they probably know that as a young man, he proudly boasted that he didn't have any working class friends, because goodness knows, why would you want to know somebody from the lower orders? And then as an adult, he decided that he wanted to go into investment banking, made himself enormously rich, married somebody who was a non-dom, in other words, she doesn't pay and didn't pay any taxes. His whole career has been entirely devoted to self. And in a recent sequence in a supermarket, we realised that he didn't actually know how to use chip and pin. He's from another planet. I hear every day from my constituents who are worried sick about how they're going to pay their bills. How are they going to pay their rent? How are they going to pay their mortgage? Some have had mortgage offers, especially young people, which have then been withdrawn. Everybody's terrified, especially in Scotland, as you can imagine, about their energy bills. And I'm deeply concerned that a lot of people have been fed this line by the Tories that there's a cap on energy bills of £2,500. Now that's a huge amount to heat your house, but it's not a cap at all, it's an average. So of course, lots of people, if they're not careful or if they have a family, could end up spending a great deal more than that. So Tory economic chaos has had real world consequences for my constituents, and I'm very sad to say that a lot of them are scared for what their immediate future holds. People remember the furlough scheme. It worked for some people, it didn't work for others, but it was an elastoplast that covered a massive wound. So it wasn't enough. And what the country, I think, is crying out for is a new economic direction. And of course, what we in Scotland need is to get out of this chaotic Brexit Britain, to have an independence referendum and to get back into the European Union as soon as possible. That's what Scots want. That's in particular what young Scots want, because they're the ones who've been impacted by the disaster that is Brexit more than any of the rest of us. I think if you think the United Kingdom is the future, given the political instability and the chaos, that's a counsel of despair. Looking back to 2014, what were we told? We were told that if we stayed in the United Kingdom, we'd be staying in a stable political and economic unit, and that we would stay in the European Union. What's happened? Well, we've been dragged out of the European Union against our will, because Scotland voted to stay in. And we've seen a succession of disastrous prime ministers and now economic chaos. Scotland can do so much better than we're doing under the United Kingdom. And you only have to look at our near neighbours, Finland, Sweden, Ireland, Denmark, to know how much better Scotland can do. At the last Scottish elections, the SNP won on a very clear manifesto, which was to hold another independence referendum. And the Tories and the Labour Party were very clear about it. They said on the day of the election, if you go out and vote for the SNP, you're voting for an independence referendum. So we all agreed about what the election was about, and the SNP won a clear mandate. It's now our job to honour that promise that we made to the electorate, that the electorate voted for, and to organise an independence referendum. Now, I'm perfectly happy for Tory and Labour politicians to campaign against independence. That's entirely within their right. But what they're not entitled to do is to stop the people of Scotland from having a say, because they agreed that that's what the last election was about. Campaign against it by all means, but don't try and stop us having a referendum, because that is our democratic right. When I was a broadcaster, most of the feedback you got from folk was by letter. And these days, I still get some letters, but they're mostly from older folk, most of my correspondence, of course, is by email. And I get a lot of people coming to my surgeries because I hold surgeries every week, and I hold them online and offline. I hold them by phone. I hold them by a whole variety of different means to be as accessible as possible. But there's a consistent theme that comes through all the correspondence and meetings that I have. People are very scared about their future in a way that they haven't been for years. They're scared about the cost of living. They're scared about how they're going to pay their energy bills. They're scared about how they're going to pay their food bills. If they're younger, they're scared about their mortgages, how to get their first mortgage. And folk who are living in the rented sector are terrified about their rent. There is a mood of fear across the constituency, and it's so sad to see.